my list of recipes in the breakfast book that I'd really like to try very soon. No particular order, but I do want to try them all in time. So also another very interesting thing, which was interesting, page 161 is spiced scrambled eggs with tomatoes, etc., and on a white toasted roll. On page 161 is a vegetable and ham omelette on white toast involving cabbage, ketchup and cheese. And on page 172 goes a bacon, egg and cheese sandwich. On page 184 goes a sourdough rye bread. Yeah, sourdough rye bread. Don't know why I spelled rye wrong. That annoys me. I have to go back over the pen. It annoys me because I really want my handwriting to be neat, and it so often gets messier. It's one of things. Sourdough rye bread, cheese or jam, which is deli sliced cheese. I think it's a Nordic thing, that is. Page 21 we have a tatty, which is another name for potato scones, and that's a Scottish thing, and in Scotland that's a classic part of their fry-up, of a Scottish fry-up. Warm brioche with butter and jam and coffee, which is often eaten in France. On page 238 we have buttermilk biscuits, which are a US thing. Although they're called biscuits in America, they look more similar to the UK scone, but I think a bit different. I haven't tried them yet, but I really want to try them. I think they are similar to the UK scone. I think the main difference is that obviously the addition of buttermilk, and I think they tend to contain more in the way of butter, but I haven't made them yet. But in America they're called biscuits, but I really want to make them. So yes, what was I? Oh yes, here. Carried on writing here. And then on page 262, there's a chickpea and corn bread stew involving egg and harissa paste. And on page 265 there's a kidney bean stew and bread from the Middle East. And on page 276 there's a kedgeree. And on page 277 there's rice and beans, which looks very easy, involving egg and avocado. And on page 342 there's a bubble and squeak and egg. A classic Nordic breakfast, by the way, might involve knackebrod or flatbread broken into bite-sized pieces and placed over a bowl of fermented sweetened milk, but you could use kefir. That's the milk I would use. I would use kefir, which I love. On page 390 is a lovely looking recipe for banana bread. Banana bread for breakfast. Now that's an idea. Spread with butter. And also lemon muffins, and blueberry muffins and bran muffins. I love muffins. And on page 396 is a recipe for spiced breakfast cake involving rye flour and plain flour. And on page 398 gives a healthy morning glory muffin from America, but it's one of those more like virtuous muffins that involves like apples and carrots and stuff. It looks reasonably healthy. When I make muffins, by the way, I always cut back on the sugar, because I often find that recipes contain way too much sugar, and you really don't need, in my experience, that much sugar to make a good muffin. By cutting back on the sugar, you actually, obviously you do your health a favour, and you make something that could be quite unhealthy into something, particularly if using wholemeal flour, that isn't actually too bad for you. Wholemeal is very good for you with fibre and everything. That's what I do. I always cut back on the sugar, because you really don't need that much sugar, and I think people often feel they need to add loads of sugar, but that's often because they're not used to not eating that amount of sugar. The thing is, like, once you've trained your taste buds not to need that much sugar, you really do notice the sugar in things. And often I find, like, that's often why I find chocolate cakes just so sweet and sickly. You know, because my home baking, I always cut back on the sugar. So yes. And then it's like, you can have your cake and eat it too, because you can make your cake healthy. There's no reason why cakes need to be unhealthy, you know. It's mainly the sugar that makes them unhealthy, and of course the fat. You can solve the fat problem, by the way. Obviously, the fat is harder to cut back on, because often you need the fat, you know, to bind it and everything, where it has a more like a structural role. But if you like, you can, if you want to be healthy, use olive oil instead of butter. So at least it's then mainly unsaturated, if you want to. So So yes, also we have here, although I find that muffins don't generally contain that much fat, they tend to be a bit healthier than cakes. On page 413, we have spiced coffee from Mexico, as it also covers various beverages. I'd really like to try spiced coffee. There's also an Arabic cardamom coffee on page 414, and also on page 414 there's a milky cinnamon and cocoa coffee. And on page 415, there's a Spanish coffee, which is hot, basically hot coffee and milk, which is also known as cafe au lait, but there's a particular recipe for it as well. That's kind of how I have my coffee anyway, but I want to follow the recipe in there because that's like more authentic. On page 415 is a turmeric latte, which is the decaf. And on page 416 we have a Turkish coffee, which is served in very small little espresso cups. I really want to get one of those tiny little cups now. On page 426 there's a mint tea recipe, which also involves green tea from Morocco. And on page 429 there's a masala chai, which is spiced tea, which is an Indian thing. And also cardamom tea. I love cardamom. And on page 432 there's a recipe for fresh orange juice for one. Obviously I've made fresh orange juice before, but it's quite nice. But it's quite nice to have a recipe for it because it gives you the exact ratio of oranges. Because I often can't remember how many oranges to use. I think it's about 4 apparently. There's quite a lot of oranges you need, isn't it, to make some orange juice? But usually when I have orange juice I have a shot bottle just because it's more convenient. But now and again it's nice to make fresh orange juice. Page 438 we have a recipe for Submarino, which is from Argentina. Now I guess it's a type of hot chocolate. Oh my god, I so want to make this. This recipe looks sublime. Basically what you need is a small bar of bitter chocolate dropped into a glass of hot milk. You can get these little bars of chocolates. I think Waitrose do them, and I think most supermarkets do them. But you can get like little mini chocolate bars for like one person. So I think I'd use one of them. Or you could just take a bit from a big bar, but if you have a nice little bit, a little bar, then you've got like a nice portion, as it were, which could be quite useful for this. Drop it in a glass of hot milk, so then it sinks like a submarine, and then it's stirred until it's melted, so that's why it's called Submarino. So gonna try that. On page 439 we also have a Spanish hot chocolate with corn flour, and I've got quite a lot of corn flour to use up, so that's quite an interesting concept, adding corn flour to hot chocolate. I guess it would make it very decadent and creamy. And we also have a spiced hot chocolate using spiced chocolate, like a bit of a chocolate bar that's been spiced as well. That's from Mexico. So I know that's just some of the recipes in the book. There's many more. I've just listed some of the ones that I most like to try in a short to medium future. Quite a lot to going on with. Obviously, it's going to take me quite a while to get through all of those. But to go to the ones I like to focus on. So yeah, it's given me lots of ideas really. To try. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. And yeah, let me know what you often have for breakfast. I'd be interested to know. Like I said, I love breakfast. I'm a breakfast nerd. Breakfast for me is, I just love breakfast. I like to have a proper breakfast, like some people say they miss breakfast or they don't have proper breakfast. I'm like, you're missing out. I mean, come on. I mean, I don't understand how people can go through the day without having breakfast. I mean, breakfast is the reason I get out of bed in the morning. If there's nothing else for me to get out of bed in the morning, if it's the only thing that motivates me, it's breakfast. Particularly when I'm having a crappy time and everything else is crap. If you can make a nice breakfast, at least you've sorted something out in a day that's nice and good. It sets you up. So that's why I think breakfast is really good. If that's the only thing I can get out of a day, if I'm having a really crappy day, I still want to make sure I have a nice breakfast. Breakfast are the most important thing. Thank you for watching.